Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Chicken Box. I'm your host, Jay Jackson Rao. Solo show for me this week, guys, but we do have an excellent guest. Again, the Chicken Box is brought to you by the Afro. For 134 years, the Afro American newspaper has been the original place where Black lives have always mattered. So, thank you for joining us. Listen, we're going to be talking to Cameron Miles, who is a Baltimore based community leader, veteran, and lifelong child advocate. He currently serves as the Community Outreach Director for the Family Investment Administration and holds degrees from Coppin State University and the University of Baltimore. A retired Maryland National Guard soldier for 22 years of service, including 18 months in the War on Terrorism, Cameron has dedicated his life to uplifting young people both in and out of uniform. He is perhaps best known as the founder and director of Mentoring Male Teens in the Hood, a program that he has led since 1996 that serves young kings ages 8 to 18 across the Baltimore metropolitan area. Through mentorship, advocacy, and the unwavering commitment, Cameron Miles has spent nearly 30 years transforming young lives one king at a time. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Jay. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, as I mentioned, you are the director of the Mentoring Male Teens in the Hood program. Now, you guys have a fundraiser coming up here.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about that?
June 18th, we'll be marking 30 years, and we'll have a celebration at the new Shiloh Family Life Center, 2100 North Monroe Street from 5:30 to 8:30. It'll be a catered event. We're going to have art for sale. We're going to have a jazz band. It's going to be a really nice event, and for any and all who can come out, we'd be glad to have them.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So let's. I want to jump into your story, which I think is incredibly important and super interesting, right? So you've started mentoring for 30 years, since 1996. Take us back to the beginning. What was happening in Baltimore that for you said, I need to do this?
So in 1996, I was working for the Baltimore City Department of Social Services as a foster parent worker. I'm sitting in the office, and daily staff are telling me, children are just completely out of control. While we're talking, young people are coming into the building with the caseworker. They're cursing, they're fighting, they're angry for a myriad of reasons. And after just seeing this over and over again, I've grown up in the city. We were raised at Poplar Grove and Pressman Street, so I've seen quite a few things, made some poor choices, but it didn't wreck my life. And I just said, I need to start a program to try to work with this population. Put pen to paper, wrote up a 2-page proposal, gave it to the director, asking for space on Saturdays in the cafeteria. That proposal was approved. We started with 5 young men, and it just grew. I don't know how in depth you want me to go, but I always thought that we should do a group mentoring program because there's too much crime from my perspective. There's too much attitude. There's too much fighting. There's too much killing amongst each other, young men that look like you and I.
Right.
So by having a group process, I thought we could begin to talk about the issues that cause us to be angry, the disrespect, and I could also talk about many other issues that affect young men, that affect families, and expose them to positive role models, black, white, male, female. And at that time, Bill Jews was the president and CEO of Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And I reached out to him and invited him, and he accepted, and that kicked it off. We just started reaching out to that caliber of person and people who had small businesses. It wasn't always the CEO, but positive men and women that were doing good things that I thought these young people could look up to.
No, I think that's It's interesting because I feel like a lot of these stories that we've talked to a number of people who've handled, mentorships and things like that. A lot of folks just kind of start with, I was hearing this was happening and I just wanted to get involved. And that just seems to be such a common thing. It wasn't, sometimes they have a personal story and a personal, direct stake in like, hey, I was going through these kind of things too. But a lot of times people just want to sort of like, I got to do something and just kind of run towards that. And I appreciate you feeling that way. So that's a powerful story, I think. Now, the work in it of itself, you've taken, your program covers everything from like teaching these young men to have like a firm handshake to avoiding gang violence. You've taken them to the New York Stock Exchange. Like, how do you decide what these men need um, to be given, sort of to progress in life? Like, how do you decide on that?
So, first of all, I pray. But after working all day, after staying abreast of the current news, conversations with different people, from fraternity brothers to friends to just people that I work with, I just think about, different aspects of what would be interesting to young people. And I haven't always been at the point of 30 years running a program. So
Sure.
I've been a young man, and I tried to put things in place that I think they would find interesting. Too many, Jay, of our young men and young women, but my focus is young men. They don't get out of Baltimore, and I think that's a tragedy.
Absolutely.
Families can't afford it, and there are many other reasons. But I think they need to know, as great as Baltimore is, there's more to life than Baltimore, and they need to see that there are other places. They need to learn other information. They need to see how other people are doing things, and that just preempted me to start planning and thinking about what is possible. Where can we go? And I don't want you or anyone to think that um, I'm against women, because I'm not.
No.
Love women, respect women, but when you put the two together, Jay, the focus is lost, because the young men are looking at everything about the young lady and they're missing all the information. So I'm doing a group mentoring program for young men because they need to have time to come together, appreciate and learn to respect one another, and then work together as a team, especially in the times that we live in now, because it's going to take all of us coming out of silos and working together to turn things around, from the dismantling of the Voting Rights Act. I mean, we don't have enough time to go through every single thing.
Right.
Neighborhoods need to be better cleaned up. We can't wait and depend on the city to do everything. So I want them to learn basic things, because each one I touch, hopefully they will touch 5 or 10 more. So that's my hope.
No, I think that's a fair point. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, you touched quickly on like the Voting Rights Act, and I do think, and you said something about these sort of silos. I still think in so many conversations that I have with folks over the last number of years, COVID is this thing that is, I think people think is done, and it is had such a tremendous effect, especially on young people who grew up at home, locked away for those 2 years. And when you say silos, like that's what rings out to me is so many of these kids had a unique experience in a lot of ways, not a great one, um, that I think has deeply affected them. And so that idea of sort of bringing these young men back into the world, and learning to interact with each other, learning to interact with other young women and things like that, and just having a different sense of themselves, because a lot of people grew up at these formidable times getting a sense of themselves from the internet, especially young men. I mean, there's a serious issue with young men right now, online. So I appreciate you sort of recognizing that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, these young men need a lot of very detailed attention. I don't think that it's like I like pancakes. It doesn't mean I hate waffles. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like it's like
Exactly.
people would sometimes jump to those conclusions, but it's a very weird one to me. It's like young men do need help, and we got to focus on them for a little bit. I mean, young women do too, like, and there are organizations for that, and there's nothing wrong with those organizations that exist.
And I'd like to add, if I may,
Sure.
that over 90% of the young men we serve are being raised by single women. So,
Right.
It's important for men to be involved on a consistent basis, because many of our young men have been disappointed, they've been lied to, and they're angry because their father is not in their life for whatever reason. The relationship didn't work out. Child support is looking for them, whatever the case may be.
Right.
To all the fathers that are listening, watching your show, I hope that they will, if they're not, get involved with their child or children. They need to spend time with them. They need to see them, and they need to learn who they are, whether it's a complete family or not. But I just think a lot of our young men are just angry based on what I hear and I'm told, because Mr. Miles, my father's not in my life, or Mr. Miles, I hate my father. And as soon as they say that, I have to stop them, because you should. I think hate is too strong a word. We don't know all the circumstances. I don't know all the circumstances that caused them not to be a part of that life. But we should not hate that person.
Right.
So I want to make sure we put that forward.
No, I think that's a good point. Let's talk about what I think is a pretty good segue for this. You said that young people in the system must receive proper mental health treatment and programming to become whole citizens. In 30 years of doing this work, what is the single biggest sort of systemic failure that you've seen running through this?
In my program, or just in general?
Or just in general, like what have you seen that the general system has failed, that's sort of been sadly consistent over this time?
I think that from a system-wide standpoint, we haven't done enough as a society to focus on poverty. I think that's the biggest piece. It starts with the homeless child, the hungry child. And I mean, last time I looked, the statistics that I'm looking at, Maryland is one of the wealthiest states in the country.
Correct.
And we just have a large population of homelessness, of people that are hungry, people that need benefits, from food stamps to temporary cash assistance to energy assistance. The need just seems to be so great. So somewhere we missed a link, or something is not working the way that it should. I'm doing all that I can to teach young men to be independent. It's okay to work 2 or 3 jobs, but we need to spend less time with foolishness and more time in building a foundation and being prepared. And that, as you know, starts with school. You got to go to school. You may not like it, but we want you to go to school and get your diploma, get your degree. If you don't have that, I'm not, and I would never say that you can't be successful. There are people that didn't finish school and have started small businesses and have done very well. But I want our young men to have that framework, that foundation of going to school. And to that end, Jay, for any young man in our program that finishes high school and goes to college, brings us an acceptance letter and a schedule, we're going to give the first $10,000 toward their college education.
Oh, no,
so I tried to put an incentive in place. Yeah. I think that's the right thing to do with the donations that come in, and hopefully it builds a legacy. If they say, Mr. Miles, I just am not interested at all in college. So our second piece is apprenticeship. Sure. Consider an apprenticeship. Recently, we had the local union come in and talk about apprenticeship, so that they have that piece also. And then the third piece would be the military. If you don't want to go to college, if you don't want to get a job, please, we don't want them, Jay, to sit home and in somebody's basement and play video games all day and smoke weed or do something else that's not productive. And I think that the marijuana piece has dumbed down and is dumbing down our entire community with the legalization of it. And people, it just has so many negative effects And I think too many of us feel that, hey, it makes me feel good, Mr. Miles. I'm relaxed. But what about your health? What about your body? What about your future? Will you be able to have healthy and productive children by ingest? So there's just so many things that are attached to it that they don't get. And then, if I may, the social media piece. I think we spend too much time with social media. Our young people have gotten away from reading and writing. And, you know, hey, I need you to consider reading one book a month that has nothing to do with school. People
Right.
look at me, Jay, like I've got three heads.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but
very
we've
real.
just gotten away from that. And I'm a disciplinarian. If you're a guest at my program and you're speaking, if they're not listening to you, that's 25 push-ups, because that
Mm.
shows disrespect. You've given your time to come out and share wisdom, knowledge, what your trade is, and then they're playing around or fidgeting. So all phones must be off once the program starts. And if I see them playing with the phone or talking to another young man while Jay, uh, am I saying Jackson Rao? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
No, you nailed it. That's perfect.
Okay, so if they're not listening to what you're sharing, that's disrespect, and we're not going to tolerate that.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. Look, somebody got to whip somebody into shape.
Right.
Somebody got to do it. So I mean, that sounds like, and I don't think it's too much of a leap. You were in the military for 22 years, a little bit of that coming through. So, how does that, you served 22 years in the Maryland National Guard. Um, how did your military service sort of shape your view of what these young men can be?
Oh, 100%. That's
Yeah.
I'm at most of what it wasn't all the military. I got a lot from an upbringing, um, being in the community. I have, like I said, I haven't always been on the right page, made some poor choices, but I think learning to respect people and keeping it real has helped me with longevity. I'm always going to listen. You're not going to overtalk me. You're not going to bully me. But I want to hear what is on your mind, and I want to help the best that I can and show. I think a lot of people will say what they can do, but young people look for the show me piece.
Yes.
Um, for me to say, we're going to go to a Wizards game, and everybody shows up for the Wizards game, and I say, well, I couldn't come up with the money to get the tickets, we're not going. Then I've disappointed that group of young people that had never been to a Wizards game and was looking forward to going over to DC and seeing the Wizards play.
Right.
So we gotta we gotta do what we say we're gonna do. We gotta be consistent. We gotta show up, and we gotta make sure they know that we have their best interests at hand. I'm not perfect by any stretch, but if I tell them that we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And every June we take a
Mhm.
college trip. I don't know if you saw any of that, but we've gone quite a few places, from Harvard to Yale to Morgan to Coppin to Columbia. Um, every year we go a different place, and I think again that adds to exposure. It
Mhm.
helps them. They stay in a hotel. Many of them never stayed in a hotel before. We eat in restaurants. We take tours. So they're hopefully seeing that myself and my staff care about them. We're not just saying it, but we're showing them, because we have to take time. We leave on a Friday, we come back on a Sunday. So we're away from family and people we care about, our children, and other things we could be doing to make a sacrifice. So I hope that they see that and appreciate that.
Yeah. And look, my sort of my personal philosophy is the world is very large, right? But when you travel, it ends up making the world actually quite small, and
Yep.
you realize like, oh, they're doing the same kind of stuff we're doing over here, maybe a little bit different, but like getting out, traveling, even within inside the United States, it changes you. It fundamentally changes who you are, because you go, oh, my entire world isn't in this tiny little box. It can be this different thing. I can live in New Orleans. I can live in New York. I can live in California. I can live, and then you start spreading out from there, and you start moving and you start changing, and you become, as you had mentioned earlier, a whole citizen, right? You know,
and
you
and
become
multifaceted. There are
exactly,
people,
exactly right.
I don't know where you're from or what you know about Baltimore, but there are
I'm from
people in
Baltimore
East
originally. Yeah.
there are people in East Baltimore that don't go west, and people
Yes.
in West that don't go to East Baltimore.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not here to judge anybody, but that's crazy. We should be able to travel
Yeah.
back and forth and see what's happening, see what's going on, and have an understanding about it. So June 5th of this year, we're taking the young men to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
None of them have ever been to Pittsburgh. So we're going to
Okay.
visit Carnegie Mellon University.
Nice.
And,
Okay.
and I picked Carnegie Mellon because it's one of the leaders in AI in this country. So we're going to tour the university. They're going to talk to the admissions folk. They're going to talk with the financial aid folks. We're going to take some community tours. We're going to eat some good food, and then we'll come back. So hopefully, and everybody, when we take these trips, has to do a one-page report on what they got out of it. No, I'm not grading it. I'm not trying to grind, but it works on your writing skills. I don't know if
Yes.
you're aware, but they don't teach young people how to sign their name anymore in school.
Yeah.
And
No
you need to
cursive.
be able to sign your name for checking accounts, for contracts. Sometimes I just feel like many facets are trying to dumb down our population. And
Yeah.
I just want to do all I can to motivate this population for the time that I have running the program. At some point, I'll step down and it'll be somebody else's turn to keep it going. But, these kind of programs are needed and they're necessary. Schools can't do it all. Families are not doing all. And if a parent, if there are two parents, that's awesome. But if there's one parent, they got 3 or 4 children, there's some lapses that are going to take place. So we want to do all we can to fill in the gaps, expose the young people. And oh, by the way, when they get their report cards, for every A they bring me, Jay, I'm going to give them $25. You should do good in school because you should do good in school. But we want to offer an incentive as well. Again, I think this is the right thing to do with the donations that we get along with the scholarship.
Excellent. Excellent. No, I think that's good. I mean, look, my parents did that growing up, the same sort of thing, right? You get so much for A, so much for B's, and like, I don't want to hear anything from you about a C. So like, knock it
Correct.
off, right?
Correct.
So yeah, no, I think those kind of incentives, and especially, grew up in a middle class, family, but even I took obviously taking that for granted. Like, surely your parents would give you like a couple dollars for A's or something. Most kids don't grow up like that. Plenty of kids are
Absolutely.
like, parents paying you for your grades. Like, no. Like, so you even being able to give them just even that experience, I think matters a lot, right? And sure, in the beginning, you strive to like, I'm going to get that $20, but eventually it just starts to click that it's not just the money, it is just the achievement, right? Like, hey, I'll still take the money. I'm not going to turn it down, but it starts to click that the achievement is where you're running, where you're running
Absolutely.
towards, right? And so, yeah, I think little things, even little things like that, I think people take for granted, right? They really do, and that goes back to your point about not addressing poverty. Even in ways like that, you just don't realize that a lot of kids don't experience that, right? And we have to sort of watch our own privilege and how we grew up, that potentially we just like, oh, okay, we just take it for granted. I do want to talk about you very specifically, which is this is this is really unpaid emotional work for you, right? You're carrying the weight of other people's children, whether they have both parents at home or just one parent at home, and they're coming from these all sorts of different backgrounds. I know all over the state. How do you sustain yourself? It's been 30 years, right? So, I know you can't be running super hard for 30 years without feeling a level of burnout. So how do you sustain yourself going through this?
So first of all, I have a deep faith. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I try to go to church on a regular basis and fellowship and read my Bible and those kinds of things. I try to exercise, and I try to remember that principle. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I have a family that cares about me, so I get a lot of arms around you, if you will, by family and people that are not family that encourage me and tell me to continue to stay the course. And we the New Shiloh Baptist Church gives us space to hold these meetings. So I don't know if you want to know about the trajectory, but we started off on Biddle Street in East Baltimore, in the social service building. From there, through my travels, I connected with a Work Matters, Genesis Work Matters program on Maryland Avenue, and they gave us space for a couple of years. And then I began to think, how do I get more young men to want to go to college? So I met with the president of Coppin State University, and they gave us space for quite a few years. My thought was, by being in an environment right on campus, seeing students going to classes and that kind of thing, maybe it will impregnate their mind to say, hey, I need to go to college. My mother, my father didn't go. I'm being raised by my grandmother, whatever the case may be. I want to go to college. And then they came back and said that we need this space for other programming. And that's when I went to the church and asked if I could hold meetings there. And for the last 12 years, I've been at the New Shiloh Family Life Center holding our meetings.
Excellent. So next, I want to talk about sort of looking forward, right? What does the next chapter of the program look like in your eyes, and what would you build? Like, what would you build if you had sort of unlimited resources to realize that vision? Like, what does that look like for you?
So I don't know if you're considering writing that $1 million check for me after this program is over, but
me,
I don't know what your network is, but I think ultimately it'd be great to have my own building. With a swimming pool, with a gym, with classrooms, with a recording studio. Many of our young are into beats and making music, so a place where they can learn to do that. And then the apprenticeship piece, where if they thought they didn't want to go to college, they would learn to do things with their hands, being a plumber, an electrician, masonry person, working on cars, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
And trying to determine who will take the program over, because from a futuristic standpoint, I'm not going to live forever, but we want to make sure that we are looking and thinking, of course, that people that are concerned and want to do it. I'm not just going to plug somebody in, but we do that by watching people. Every time we take a trip, Jay, we enlist what are called peer leaders. So we're always looking at juniors and seniors to be peer leaders. And when we go, I can't watch 40 young men. I have 3 or 4 staff that go, but we have the peer leaders in place. They're responsible for bringing a huge, a case that you can put juice and snacks. The case has to be iced down. They're responsible for all of that. When we get to the hotel, they have to take it in the hotel. They have to bring it to my room. They have to make sure that other young men are not, we don't own the hotel. We share a hotel with guests. They can't be running through the halls. They can't be too loud. So they help monitor all of that. In the mornings, they make sure that everybody is up. They got to get themselves up and get themselves ready. And then they got to go around and knock on doors and make sure everybody's up. They've done their hygiene. If they want to eat breakfast, they eat breakfast. And then when we go to different sites for tours, everybody needs to be watching somebody to make sure everybody got the memo that I need to be laser focused and paying attention. To take a trip Friday to Sunday, we're talking $12,000 to $15,000. You talk about a bus, you talk about hotel, you talk about food, you talk about tours and honorariums. So I don't ever want people to feel they're writing a check to help us and we're just wasting money, because I don't want to waste money. I want to squeeze every dollar that we get. I'm probably the only person that could squeeze a penny and make it bleed. So I'm trying to really stretch our resources as best we can. I report to a board of directors. They're very supportive. They basically sign off on things that I want to do. I do my research, and we just want everybody to be safe. We want them to get something out of the experience. But at the end of the day, we've already started looking at um, who could keep the program going. 15, if God allows me, 15 or 20 more years to stay on the scene. But we need to look at bringing one or two co-leaders to make sure we keep the program going. Because I've worked too hard to just let it stop or let it go.
Exactly. I mean, I would argue the best thing that you can ever do is leave that legacy, right? Not just the 30 years of work, and I'm sure you've helped hundreds, maybe even thousands of young men, but that idea that once you decide I'm going to retire or what have you, it continues past you, and you can look back and go, hey, like I did that, and like look at where it's going. Look, it's going further than even I could take.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's such a powerful impact. So at this point in the show, we normally do our get on the box bit, which is just what do you want people to take away from this conversation. So I will go first, and then I'm going to let you have the last word, Cameron. Look, I think this type of work is incredibly important. I think education and the sort of formal education is obviously incredibly important to our community. I think when you couple this sort of mentorship by people who just see a problem, see a gap for young people, and say, I'm going to help fill that gap and get them from where they are to where they need to be going, I think is a sort of a very powerful step. So I really appreciate you doing what you're doing. I want people to remember, I want to make sure I plug this again. You guys have a fundraiser June 18th at the Mentoring Male Teens in the Hood at Shiloh Baptist Church. So there you go. Thank you to our producer, Asia, for that. So make sure that you go, donate, help these guys out. You're doing great work. And look, it's been a 30-year anniversary. I'm not saying you're going to be still doing this in 30 years, but if you still want to be doing it in 30 years, Cameron, by all means, I think that's great. New Shiloh Family Life Center, 2100 North Monroe Street in Baltimore. So I'm going to get off the box, and I'm going to leave it to you, Cameron, with the last word.
So again, Jay and Ms. Martin, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I would encourage people to consider writing a check. We are a certified 501c3. We're in good standing with the state of Maryland. All our paperwork has always been in order. We have an accounting firm that helps us with that. I would ask that people consider coming to the fundraiser and telling others. If 10 people write a check for $20, that's going to make a difference in what we do. Every single month, we meet the first and the third Saturday from 9 to 1:30. We serve lunch. Every time we serve lunch, Jay, it's $400. So that's $800 a month.
There you go.
Just for lunch. Every time we order a bus, school bus, it's $550. As I think I mentioned earlier, when we take this trip, it's going to be, between $12,000 and $15,000 when we tally up. So, there's a whole lot for people to do. If people want to stop by and see what's going on, they can stop by and see what's going on. I'm not easy to allow people to get involved. They have to show a commitment, because the last thing I want to do is have somebody get involved, come 3 months, young people begin to get attached, and then they decide, I'm going to do something else. That does more damage to young people than anything. So, please tell others, get involved. If you want to get involved, there's a process. We meet, we have a conversation. You have to do a background check. I have to get a copy of your resume. I do my research, but I'm real serious about what I do. And if I don't think you're the right person, I'm not going to ask you to be involved, because we don't want to do damage to young people. And my final thought is that we have a chant that we have young men repeat every single time we get together. I am somebody. I am a king. I have self-worth. If it is to be, it is up to me. For good, better, or best, never let it rest until my good gets better and my better gets best. A setback is a setup for a comeback, and failure is not an option. And we want to permeate the subconscious minds of our young people with positive sayings opposed to negative sayings and curse words. So please be careful to all who are listening to your show, what you say around and to young people. A child will follow your example, not your advice. And again, I thank you. Jay.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Chicken Box. Cameron, thank you very much for coming in. Really appreciate it. It was a powerful
Thank you.
story.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
All right. Bye-bye.